You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Homefield Apparel. And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as today your Indiana Hoosiers defeat the Baylor Bears in an exhibition game at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, 76-74, in a game that really did not feel like an exhibition game. Like, if you didn't know this was an exhibition game and you just tuned in to watch, like, this felt like a highly competitive game between two teams that were playing all their guys and two teams that were really playing hard to win this game. So, just in terms of, I think, what you get out of it from an exhibition standpoint of learning about the team and actually seeing the guys in a highly competitive environment, really a lot that we can take away from today's game. And it's always nice when you can win it. Now, Indiana, of course, won their exhibition game last year at Tennessee, and that didn't exactly presage great things to come during the season. But nonetheless, it's great to win, to build that habit of winning. And I think there's a lot of things that we saw here today that helped to kind of reinforce some of the good feelings that we had after the Marion victory, but also that highlighted some of the issues that this team is going to have to work to overcome as the season goes along. But ultimately, a big win for the Hoosiers here today, and we're going to break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. I'm Jared Morse. Coach Brian Tonsoni is live on location. Ryan is here taking a break from his NFL duties, and Bob Moats. I mean, Bob is just like beside himself with excitement that the coaches are getting this extra 5 minutes of OT work, which his excitement level is just through the roof for that.
Let's go.
Okay. That's right. That is right. Okay, let's start this show the way that we start every show. That is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And, I had one moment for a while, but when it's 74-74 and you have a guard who gets the ball with 12 seconds to go, you need a bucket, and he just goes and gets you a bucket, well, that's going to be your banner moment, because that's what it takes to win big games like this. It is what Indiana has been missing, so long for so much of the last, 8 years, really 8-9 years, is a guy who's aggressive enough, talented enough, athletic enough, and skilled enough, and confident enough to just go get a bucket. And, one of the things that we heard a lot, Brian Butch said this numerous times during the game, and we saw it and we've talked about it, is just these Indiana guys, especially offensively, playing free, trusting their system, trusting their IQ, making smart decisions in the moment, not everything off of pre-scripted movements, but just reading the moment and reading the game. And that's exactly what Tayton Conerway did on that play, to take it coast to coast, give Indiana the lead. He got fouled, of course, missed the free throw, and then Indiana obviously played tough defense and was fortunate that Baylor missed some shots on the other end. But a big bucket by Tayton Conerway, and just really nice when you need a bucket to see a guard go get you a bucket. And he wasn't even the leading scorer. Lamar Wilkerson got Indiana tons of buckets, and we'll talk about him as well. But really nice to see Tayton Conerway come through and get that bucket there at the end when Indiana really needed it. All right. And our banner moment today, as always, brought to you by our friends at Homefield Apparel, and the guys at Homefield Apparel, now in their 10th season sponsoring the Assembly Call. Their fourth, at least. It might be the fifth, but at least their fourth is the presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. And I have to say, you guys know Homefield, the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you're going to find anywhere. And the nice thing is, since IU is their flagship school, whenever they come out with new stuff, it's almost always you get the IU stuff first. And so that's why you always want to make sure that you are paying attention to their new releases. And so I get their text alerts. I haven't been on Twitter as much lately, and so I don't see their tweets anymore, but I get the text alerts. And so, and I'm signed up as both an Indiana fan and an A&M fan because of my wife, big Aggie fan. And so over the last couple of weeks, as you might imagine, I've been getting lots of texts about A&M stuff, about Indiana stuff, with A&M football and Indiana football both playing very well. And so it's nice to get those reminders, to see when new stuff comes out. There's new hats, there's new sweatshirts, pullovers. I mean, Homefield just always adding fun new items. They're there. You can get ahead on your Christmas shopping, or just buy something for yourself. Especially if you're an IU football fan, you want to indulge and enjoy everything that's going on right now. Get one of those shirts, and you can do it. You can use our promo code HOME23. That'll get you 15% off your first order. But go to homefieldapparel.com. Get on the text alerts, follow them wherever you like to get your alerts, and then use code HOME23 for 15% off your first order. Once again, the website, homefieldapparel.com, wear one for the team. All right, well, it is time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And we will start with the coach, who, as I said, is live on location in Gamebridge. Coach, your impressions of this Indiana performance, seeing it up close.
Well, I got to get on the move here in a little bit down to the media room. I'll try to reconnect. But I thought it was a fascinating game. As you mentioned, the athleticism gap was huge in the first half, and then Indiana adjusted. And I think that's going to be a key thing all year long. In these exhibitions, you're not going to run a lot of sets. I think they're going to have to really scout and do some things to make up for that athleticism. They blocked out. They just got out, rebounded at times, and they were fighting hard to get the defensive rebounds. But a lot of points were given up on straight line drives and rebounds. But the thing that I love the most is how they came out in the second half. And even though they were just playing conceptually, they got it done with great defense. They switched some things in the second half that they weren't doing. They were very active with their hands, and offensively the ball moved better, and they were able to get some shots that they weren't able to get in the first half, and really then hung on a couple times, gave up a lead, fought back, gave up a lead, fought back, and found a way to win. Even in an exhibition, I think that's good signs going forward.
Can I make a proposal that every time Coach speaks, there's a bed of "Don't stop till you get enough" playing under his talking?
I'm on board. I'm in.
I'm going to go down to the media room, and I'll try to get back on here before I leave.
Okay, sounds good, Coach. All right, Ryan, let's go over to you. Anything to rant or ruminate about after this?
In our group text, I said it's just weird seeing an Indiana team play with this much energy, and it feels odd watching it. And it's again, nothing about the last coaching staff. It's been a decade of this, of just kind of going through the mud. And I'll say this, I think, and this isn't true, but this is how it feels, is that, when you're playing a slower tempo, it looks like the players are not enjoying themselves, quite frankly. And when you're playing up tempo, it just feels like everybody's more into it, and it feels more connected when you're playing that. And it's not so isolated. It's not so much one-on-one. It is movement, and it is being involved. And there's two things I want to talk about. And one is just the fight in these guys was incredible. I mean, you're down 31-18 early. You only have like 7 guys who can play any minutes. I think did they really play? Yeah, it was 7. And then Josiah Miles got 1 minute. So that's 8. But it'd be easy to just say, okay, this is a practice game. It's an exhibition. Let's just kind of like work on our stuff. Forget the score or whatever. Instead, they outscored Baylor 58-43 the rest of the way and played incredibly hard and really wanted to win. And the instinct of this team to want to win, we saw it in Puerto Rico, where they got down by in the 20s and came back and won. There's a fight in this team, in this group. And I think that some of these guys have a chip on their shoulder because they played at a lower level and are now moving up to the Big Ten. And I think they think they're being overlooked. And you saw some of those guys, Wilkerson, Conerway, Tucker DeVries, like these guys really wanted to win this game to prove a point. Coach is right. There's some things that are going to be hard for this team. The athleticism, the length of Baylor bothered them for long periods of time. They're going to have to out scheme other teams to make up for that. Saw a couple offensive rebounds in key spots where they gave them up. I just think that you look at this team, only 7 guys really played. Some guys are logging 38, 34, 35 minutes, which is not what you want to do in October, but that's really all you have right now because of injuries. They did that, and they also only shot 25% from three-point range, which we all expect to be much better during the season. You factor those two things in, and they still won against what should be a really good Baylor team. That's impressive to me. And so I think that, again, exhibition game, it's a very basic sets from both teams, very basic defenses from both teams, all of that. But to see Indiana in a game that doesn't matter, fight back and win that way and play with that kind of intensity on the stretch, really great to see. And it makes me really even more excited for the season to see these guys fight like that.
Yeah, well said. Coach Moats, your initial impressions of this IU performance?
It's interesting to see, again, echoing what Coach said, what Ryan just said as well, the amount of fight and just scrap that this team has. Taking it as I was kind of watching this and kind of observing, it was like watching also how the coaching staff adjusted and how the players adjusted to what Baylor was throwing at them.
Remember, Coach, it was a different game after halftime.
Yeah, and I even encountered during the first half, there were times where they were figuring stuff out. Like when Baylor was trying to jam them, on the perimeter, instead of just kind of mindlessly shifting, or when you're kind of doing the sort of replacement type of stuff that Jay Wright would run at Villanova, where you just move a couple defenders on the weak side to break it up. There was one where they were doing that sort of that exchange, and Wilkerson just hard 45 to the lane and got an easy layup. That's the sort of thing where you have to take what defenses give you. And this team, again, through their, I think Jared, you mentioned their high basketball IQ and their ability to kind of just play and understand the game, they're able to do those things. More than that, though, it's also a thing where they trust each other and they actually put themselves in positions where it's like you're seeing a team that's beginning to form. It's greater than the sum of its parts, which is something we haven't been able to say at Indiana in a very, 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 very long time. I'd even say going even before Crean in many respects, because what you're seeing is a group of kids that a game like this, after they got punched in the mouth, could have easily been a 25-point blowout. And then it's just, okay, now what are we trying to figure out? Where are we standing? This team then just kind of just says, okay, let's try to attack this a different way. Ball pressure, by the way, passing lane pressure was amazing. For all of the conversation I think people may have about, well, we got blown by a couple times here or there, they also forced 16 turnovers, and they also got more points off of turnovers versus Baylor. They also were able to play, I think, a 70-possession game or so against Baylor and beat them by 2. That's not something we're used to seeing out of it, not just Indiana, but the preponderance of Big Ten teams, that they were able to not necessarily play Baylor's game, but they were able to play a Baylor-esque type of game and beat them at it. So that's even in an exhibition. Yeah. Purdue right now is having questions after losing by 15 to Kentucky at Rupp in an exhibition. Last year we had the Tennessee game. A couple of years ago when Purdue went to the final game, they lost to Arkansas in Fayetteville. Yeah, this is an exhibition, but what it really showed us was, can this team play against a highly skilled opponent and hold their own and have a chance to win? And I think we saw that they can do that, which kind of gives us a better idea that the ceiling may be a little higher than what the national voices are giving them right now.
Yeah, and by the way, if you want a little bit of context, if you haven't been paying that close of attention, Baylor preseason number 17 in KenPom. Now, I don't know where they are in Torvik, but this is a team that people think has a chance to be pretty good just based on the talent. Obviously, a lot of new pieces, just like Indiana has, but clearly a lot of talent there as well. Okay, let's go on to the rest of segment 1 here. Time for 40 minutes in Bloomington, where we kind of break down the first half and the second half, which is especially interesting for tonight's game or today's game, because it was really a tale of two halves. And the first half, I think, Ryan, you mentioned it, Indiana gets down 31-18. And there's some text flying back and forth in our group chat. I don't know. Some idiot was like, boy, I was having a lot more fun watching the Marion game.
This was way more fun. What are you talking about?
No, it turned out to be way more fun. But I think there was that stretch in the first half where it was like, oh, yeah, this team does have deficiencies. Not as long, not as athletic. There's just some things that this team's going to struggle to do. But, Coach, what I was so impressed with in the first half, it was Indiana's ability, once we got down by 13, to just chip away and whittle away. And I think there was, I don't know if there was just some bad muscle memory from the past of just seeing Indiana in a game in a neutral court that people had been looking forward to. There was a part of me that just kind of thought the first half was going to get away from us when Baylor went on that run. And there was nothing like spectacular that Indiana did. But they would manufacture a layup with a good set in the half court. They would get a loose ball. They would take a charge. I think Lamar Wilkerson took 2 or 3 charges during the first half. And they just found a way to chip away and get it back to 4 or 5 or whatever it was at the end of the first half, which kind of set the stage. It kind of felt like the momentum had shifted and then set the stage for the second half. And so, again, we're making these statements about this team after seeing them twice, and neither game has counted. So, some of these, generalizations could look foolish when we have a larger sample size, but it showed a team that A, was smart, B, kind of trusted their system and their coaching, and B, had the mental and physical toughness to just go kind of make plays even when things weren't going well. And that, I think, is just something that bodes well, because this team's going to have to do that in a lot of matchups where they are not the most talented team. And they're going to be a decent amount of matchups like that this year. And they showed today kind of what that formula can look like to compete anyway.
Yeah, I think you're talking at the 4:46 mark. There's a backdoor play to Enright to Wilkerson, followed at 4:18 by another backdoor on what I call a flare wrap. They were wrapping DeVries for a dunk. So those are kind of settling plays. Indiana was down 9-10 at that point, got back to 6. Those are key things in the concepts of what Coach DeVries wants this Indiana offense to be. Again, we'll see more sets and more design things, and if the pressure is too much, they'll call some sort of action. They got a nice thing in the second half when we talk about it, and we just missed a post layup by a post player. But those two plays in particular got Indiana the ship righted again. And those are out of concepts. You're cutting and you're moving and you're looking to move the basketball and share the basketball. I think that was a key point there in keeping Indiana in the game, as you said, changing that momentum a little bit and getting them ready for the second half. But those were two key plays I wrote down, especially for that run here in the first half.
Coach Moats, was there anything else that you saw schematically or just in terms of what Indiana was doing, especially how they adjusted after kind of seeing, what some of the personnel differences were on the court?
I'll do one offensive and one quick defensive, because I thought the defensive one was interesting because Ryan brought up the switching. I'll do the defensive first. When they would switch off, and at one point they actually had Alexis guarding on the perimeter, and Enright was inside. And I've been doing a little bit of just kind of work, kind of looking at some of the Drake stuff when they would switch, and how effectively Enright was at fronting the post and just shutting down their ability to get it into the into the post at that moment. That was something that, again, we never really saw that under Archie, and definitely didn't see and Woodson, and even going back, where you now have a guy that was undermatched, but it wasn't they weren't able to exploit the mismatch as effectively as other teams have done it in the past. Offensively, there were several situations where it's like, I think IU, with their post work and their post feeds, the post looked a lot different. There was so much space on the backside that when Alexis in particular got a post mismatch, where the ball movement and the player movement got the post player into a spot where they had a smaller guy guarding him and they fed it, there's no space behind them. And there were one time they lobbed it over. A couple other times they got it into a position where the big could make a play, because the big, because again, Sam Alexis isn't going to shoot over too many Big Ten bigs, but because they got those switches and there's no backside help, because you can't go off of Alexis and leave the shooters on this team open. So that's one of those things that we haven't seen at IU, that sort of space, interior space that was available. And that translated to the driving game. It actually really what also translated to Conerway having a wide open look at the end, because here Baylor is thinking he's going to move the ball, and he saw it. It was like Moses and the Red Sea parts, and he's like, "Let my people go," and he goes right to the lane, 2 feet, reverse layup, gets the foul. Unreal. And it's like, where has this been for X amount of years? And it's in front of us, and I just think we're going to see a much different style of play, not just for IU, but what we see in the Big Ten. This is a much different style than you see any. I can't think of a Big Ten team that runs and plays this way, to be perfectly honest.
Ryan, as we start to look toward the second half, what were some of the big things that stood out to you?
Well, it's just interesting how they got 3 guys contributing points in the second half in a big way. You got 12 from Wilkerson, 13 from Conerway, and then 9 from DeVries. And I think we're expecting them to lean heavily on 3-pointers this year from at least Wilkerson and DeVries, but they're only 4 of 14. Wilkerson and DeVries were a combined, 3 of 10. Where they got it done was at the free throw line. I mean, 12 of 13 from the free throw line, and you're getting that because of the movement of the offense. If you're just stationary, the defense doesn't have to do much. But when you're driving, when you're cutting, when you're moving, you're forcing the defense to react. And a lot of times, especially early in the season, defenses are going to react with their hands, not their feet. And so that's how you're getting that. Conerway, a perfect example of what Bob's talking about, is that the last possession of the game, as you talked about in the banner moment, Conerway just drove and nobody was there. He got, and then they stepped in. He gets to the hoop, and he lays it in, gets fouled there, and makes the shot. But I just thought it was interesting that you have 3 guys who can attack you from the perimeter, and that opens up everything else for everyone else. And I think DeVries, his ability to even when the 3-point line is not available to him, to get to the free throw line and not necessarily take that shot, but you get to the free throw line, the defense has to react to that, and that opens up everybody else. And you trust him to make that jumper from the free throw line, although we don't want long twos. Let's not get used to that. But you trust him to make that shot, so they have to respect it, and that opens up the rest. And you're just cutting to the middle of the defense and making a play there. So I just think it was to have 3 guys who can attack you like that and score. Some nights it's going to be 2 of the guys are going to score more. One of the guys not going to score as much. You're going to have combinations like that. But that just showed what the vision is here, is to have those guys on the perimeter who can attack and everybody else play around them and get their plays through that. And it was just impressive to see. And I don't think Indiana has had attacking from perimeter players like that in a long time, from multiple perimeter players. And so, yeah, I will say Conerway, his second half really impressed me. He's a lot more, and I think we've kind of gotten hints of this, but he's a lot better than advertised offensively, I think. And if the threes start falling for him, it's going to take the offense to another level.
Yeah, he's probably not going to have the efficiency that we all want, but he's got the
Agreed.
toughness and the mentality, and so I think he'll deal with a few missed shots. I think there was 1 3 that he took early in transition, like maybe it was early in the second half. And I'm like, I'm all for this new freedom and shooting threes whenever. Maybe could have done without that one, but I think he's just a guy who's going to play aggressive. And so I think you'll deal with a few of those. But I like the mentality that he brings to this team. Like, he's the kind of guy, just a bulldog, guarding, willing to go make plays, not afraid of the moment. And that's the kind of guy that you want. You can win with a guy like that. And Indiana did win today, which is awesome. Okay, let's move on here to segment 2. Coming up as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's exhibition victory over Baylor. The music didn't play. Let's see if we can get it to play here. We will point out our Hall of a Moment from today's game. This coach has rebranded that, which I like. And share a few stat sheet stories as well. You are listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hi, this is Juwan Morgan. What's the only thing better than getting IU's first triple-double in 47 years? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
Thank you, Juwan. That's a guy who had a few moments playing basketball in Indianapolis for the Hoosiers over the years. Okay. You listen to the Assembly Call. I'm Jared Morris here with the coach Brian Tonsoni, the coach Bob Moats, and Ryan Phillips. Ryan, I know that you have to bounce off your NFL duties. Do you want to make a final concluding statement here before you leave us?
Yeah, man, it's a new era. I mean, it's just a different. This is not going to be a slow transition to a new system or anything like that. This is a clean slate, new era. Love watching this team play. Really excited for the season to get started on Wednesday after these 2 exhibition performances and what we've seen from this team, for a while. Now, look, this year, this team's going to lose some games it should win. It's going to win some games it should lose. It's going to be a college basketball season, where things, it's going to be up and down at times. But seeing the direction that we're taking this program, you can't not be encouraged. Like, it's just incredibly encouraging where this is going, how this is going to line up with the way teams play basketball these days in college basketball. This is the way teams win, is with this up-tempo, offense-focused, guard-focused attack. And then you add pieces to make it even better around the edges, and that's when you can make a run at a Big Ten championship, at a national championship. But this is where it starts, and they've got the right ingredients for the start. This team is really fun to watch. They play really hard. They are never out of, they have shown that they don't quit. They aren't going to give up. And so watching that today and seeing it again and having it confirmed again was great. Let's get to Wednesday and let's start the season.
Let's do it. All right, thanks for being here, Ryan. Go
Bye,
enjoy
everybody.
the rest of your NFL Sunday. Okay, so it is time now for today's Hall of a Moment, and I know that we changed the name, but we don't have a new song yet, so I'm playing the old song. But it didn't play. There we go.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
That's right. Meaningful moments that you might have missed, but also called Hall of a Moment, which I think Coach is smart. Like, you all are smart Indiana fans. You probably caught all of these moments. You don't miss a whole lot as an Indiana fan, but we're going to point out some moments that really stood out to us. Now, guys, there are two moments, but I got to start out with the moment that just made me so excited. So there was this moment in the second half. You guys might have seen it. Lamar Wilkerson picked up his fifth personal foul, and he stayed on the court. And he got to continue playing and making plays down the stretch. Now, can we join hands and close our eyes and just imagine how much better the college basketball world would be if more games finished with the best players playing? Did anybody have a problem with that today? I didn't. Now, if you want to assess a technical free throw or something else to it, fine. I'm okay with that. But the best players finishing the games is how basketball should be. And frankly, I loved it. Now, clearly our guards, I love all the ball pressure and the steals and everything that we're doing defensively. However, we are going to have to be a little careful with the fouls. But I've long advocated that fouling out, I think, is the dumbest thing. The best players are sitting on the bench for the key moments in the game. It's idiotic. It's not a good way to set up a sport. And I just thought that was a wonderful moment to actually see what that looks like in practice. The best players staying on the court. Amazing. Any thoughts on that moment from you guys?
It was one of those things where nobody on the broadcast team, it's almost like, and coach, this will remind you of those times where you get with one of your drinking buddies and you decide to have your teams play each other. Just like with the gym, it's like an exhibition. It's a controlled scrimmage. And then you're like, don't let them foul out. I'll never forget one of my first years coaching, had a bunch of 10-year-olds up in Indianapolis. They're playing a team from Baltimore. They were up. They beat us 36-4. These kids flew to Indianapolis from Baltimore. My point guard fouls. I had one ball handle. That poor young man fouled out in the early part of the third. The other coach just yelled down the sideline, "Hey, keep him in the game. It's not going to." We knew, so it kind of had that sort of feel to it, where it's almost like we're everybody involved is kind of like, okay, we want to get the most out of it. That's the thought I had when I was watching. It was like Scott Drew sitting here thinking, I'm getting nothing out of this if I don't have Lamar Wilkerson on the court, because I'm still trying to scheme and how to figure out how we're going to stop this guy. Game doesn't count. Nobody really cares. It's a thing where I got to get more out of this performance in this game. And the fact that they finished up with a 5-minute, call it a JV game for lack of a better term, that they actually did a JV game at this one was pretty impressive too. So I like the fact that we have that sort of flexibility. Look, I believe in player disqualifications on fouls. You might be able to convince me on a sixth. You might be able to convince me because it governs play, governs behavior. It just allows for, you don't want the game to get too out of control. I would say a sixth foul would be a conversation worth having. I also look at, and maybe that's Jared, we would love to have you on X's. We'll do this on X's and Joe's sometime. This is a perfect X's and Joe's off-season conversation where we'll just go in there and we'll discuss the history of time telling and penalizations, but through the years from beheadings to today, we'll go there. But I do think that was nice to see that everybody at the end for an exhibition game was able to kind of just leave their guys in there and just get a high level completion, which is what I think both coaches needed and were looking for.
We were all confused on Media Row about it had to be planned ahead of time, and these are what these exhibitions are, and it's good. So Jared, made your day. So yeah, here's something too along those same lines. One of my moments was before the game, watching IU work out, and really with a good purpose. Everyone's a lot of juice, a lot of excitement, and there was no free time shooting within an hour before the game. And then afterwards, Tucker DeVries goes around and gives fives to every manager and every coach who was out there helping the 2 or 3. And I like to see that things. I know I'm old-fashioned, but I think good teammates help win basketball games, and especially when you're the best player or you're supposed to be one of the best players and you're showing some unselfishness by thanking people. That was a hall of a moment for me. But, guys, the hall of the moment was the press breaker 3 by Wilkerson.
Yes.
When they break the press, pitch it ahead, and take the 3.
Right.
Talk about a new brand of Indiana basketball. That was a hell of a moment, and I was glad to see it.
Yeah, no, that was a great moment. And I'll tell you the other one that I wanted to point out, Coach, is actually where Indiana took their first lead. Not the first lead of the game, but their first lead in a while was when it was 45-43 early in the second half. Baylor makes a couple of free throws. They set up a press. Again, we break it easy. 2 passes, Conerway, up to Wilkerson on the wing, drains the 3. And that's where, Brian Butch, who was doing the color analysis for the games, just made this comment, the ability and the freedom to play. Mm-hmm. And that just really stood out to me because you really see it with this team. Again, it's not, it's felt for a long time like we've had guys, most of the guys catch the ball, stop, kind of look, and like everything stops and there's not a lot of flow. And here it really just feels like things are flowing more. And if guys feel like they have an open shot, they're going to take it. It's like the fast break one that Conerway took earlier. Do I like that in a vacuum? No, I don't think that was a good shot. But I also think that you're going to have to deal with some shots like that to have guys play free. And so I don't even know that it's something. I mean, obviously, if you take too many of those, it gets a little bit out of hand. But I would rather have guys that are, okay, maybe we're taking a few more threes than we want to take. I'd rather err on that side than the other side of, man, it looks like we might have some open looks if we catch it ready to shoot it. So those moments continue to stand out. And, I'm sure once we get deeper in the season, we'll be able to take that for granted a little bit more and it won't be so exciting. Hey, the guy was ready to shoot it. But right now it's really standing out and making a difference.
So Coach and I, real quick, when we talk to players, is he okay? When we've been coaching, and I mean, we used to talk about a lot of that. Just we want great decision making. What we're hearing now in basketball, and this is more and more and more what we're hearing, is that we want good, quick decisions, not great, slow decisions. So when you talk about half second, 0.5 second decision making, that's a good shot. It's not a great shot. And I think what I mean by that is it used to be a time in our coaching and in how we taught the game was that, oh no, we don't want that transition 3. We don't want that out of the break. We don't want that. We'd rather just maybe work it a little bit. But you realize that the defense is still in transition. You're getting a clean look. You may not have been able to manufacture a better look out of half court offense. It's I'll give an inverse to this, Jared, that might actually may also make sense on the defensive end. I think it was right before the first break. Connor Enright's defending their lead at the top. I mean, we're talking like at the logo of the half court. He gets a deflection. The guy gets it back, and then he beats him on a straight line drive. And I was texting with a friend like, "Well, that's bad defense." Like it might be bad from one vantage point, but do you get more out of the aggression over the course of a game? When you look at a 70 possession game, you may give that up. You may give up that one straight line drive, but if you result in disrupting 2 or 3 additional plays that before they were picking you apart on, the sum of the parts means that you get it at the end. And that's where the analytical approach to the game kind of goes versus the sort of, I can't believe I'm going to harp on this kid for an hour after the game or stew about it as I'm driving home. Where that's the sort of thing where we're going to have to kind of give them some grace and give them that as they're going into this type of play. Because if you watch an SEC or an ACC or even a Big 12 game, that's the type of basketball you're seeing. You're seeing that aggressive play, and every once in a while, and you see it a lot in the NBA also, you have a bit of a breakdown and someone kills you, and then you just get it back next possession. And I think that those are the meaningful, these sorts of moments are ones that are good for our fans and for us to kind of just process and be like, I'll give that up because it was a play made out of strength, and the other guy just made a better play. We just got outspeeded, outstrengthed, out athletic.
Yeah. Coach, your thoughts on that? Uh-oh. I think we might have lost Coach's microphone. Let's see. I'm going to check his mic settings real quick. Nope. Nothing there. Yeah, I don't know. You may have to get out and come back in or try the on button. I assume it's on. But okay, so while coach is figuring out his microphone, Bob, any other moments that stood out? We'll start talking about stats too.
I just thought there was one real early defensively again. Bailey on a closeout. This was at the 16:40 mark. Reed Bailey, we're in a scramble situation. He closes out the shooter. The shooter makes a pass and he gets back in position to make another deflection. So it's little things like that we didn't see. Active, mobile guys playing not just a position or an area on the court, but actually playing good team defense and then hustling back into passing lanes or into challenge and then get the get the deflection. Those are the sorts of hustle plays that we're talking about and that we're seeing more of. And I think that, the more that we see that on both ends, I just think at the end of the year, we're going to really love this team. It's going to be like that first tournament team that was in Kentucky after Eddie Sutton was fired. I have a feeling these guys are going to come back to campus, and we're going to always feel like a sense of connection and appreciation for who these kids were and how they played the game.
Yep. Coach?
No, I think I'm back now. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay, yeah. No, I think Indiana wore down Baylor to some extent in the second half, especially with their tenacity, with their hands, with their technique on trying to – and that Enright play that was great hustle, and then he just got half a step out of position, right? And the kid goes straight line drive. But when you put on great ball pressure, you're going to get beat. And I'll be interested to see what the coverages are and what the rotations are going forward when you scout someone and you can leave a player and all of that. I'm not sure there was any scouting done in this game. But they put a lot of pressure on, but you got to live with sometimes when the ball gets to the rim. It's not going to be, Jared, just let them drive to the rim type stuff that we used to see. This is because of effort. And when you give good effort, you're going to, if you get 70%, 80% of disruption and then 20% of the plays, it's always going to look bad when it goes to the rim or they throw an alley-oop off a ball screen for a dunk. It's going to look bad. But tonight, the effort was there, even blocking out. You're going to give up some rebounds. But they'll clean that up, and then they'll figure out rotations out of scouting.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about some numbers from this game. And as always, our stats segment brought to you by our friend, Megan Mahaffey, and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding areas and you want your taxes done right, contact our friend and Chapman Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey and her team in Bloomington, Bedford, and Martinsville by calling 812-339-3334 or by visiting jacksonhewitt.com. A couple that stand out real quick here, Coach. Obviously after that first game against Marion, a lot of talk about the three-point shooting. It was so great seeing the 15 for 30 go up. And I think there are going to be a lot of games where this team makes threes, and that's going to be a path to victory on a lot of nights. I thought it was really nice. Now their next time out, the threes aren't really falling. Even the attempts weren't there as much. They only get up 24 attempts, which is probably going to be one of the lower numbers we see all season, in part just because of Baylor's length and athleticism. Only make 6 of them. And so, really kind of one of your primary paths of scoring isn't there, but you find other ways. As Ryan mentioned, 20 of 21 from the free throw line, did a nice job, scoring inside. 34 points in the paint without a lot of posting up, but just finding opportunities inside. That was encouraging. But the other one that tells a huge story, Coach, and it's probably going to be a story all season long, is, just the rebounding and some of those stats associated with the length, the athleticism, type stuff that you see. Now, as we've talked about before, you can compensate for some of that with technique and hustle and attentiveness and all that stuff. But for whatever reason, that wasn't happening today on the glass as Baylor out-rebounds Indiana 44-25. And so to be able to come back and, win a game where you get out-rebounded like that, obviously that's good for Indiana, but they're going to have to find ways in games like this to even that out some. I think they're probably going to get out-rebounded by teams like Baylor, but if you can get that to 8 or 10 or get it a little bit closer, that's certainly going to be helpful. But to me, those were the two big stats that jumped out. What else jumped out to you, Coach?
I will piggyback on that. 18-3 second chance points deficit for Indiana, and you win a ball game. And you win a ball game against a 17th ranked KenPom team. So you're making up for a huge deficiency there in points by getting to the foul line. So you combine the lack of three-point efficiency with the lack of second chance point efficiency, and you find a way to win a game when the other team's more athletic. That just, again, it's an exhibition, and we don't know the Baylor's rotation or what they were doing. But this team has found ways, being down in the exhibitions overseas or at Puerto Rico, and then finding a way to come back. Like, this team is going to keep clawing and fighting. But to win a game where 16 offensive rebounds to 4, and you give up 18 second chance points and you only get 3 yourself, and you find a way to battle and win, those are the numbers usually would stand out in a loss. We would be pointing those out in a loss, but it's kind of fun to point those out when you get a win, exhibition or not.
Yeah, and Bob, as we transition to you, I want to pull in this comment from John Hester, who said, "I didn't see the game, but listened to Fish. He kept saying how tired IU looked. Was that not the case?" And I think, Coach, you mentioned it looked like Indiana wore Baylor down some, and I do think that's the case. I do think there were times we looked tired. I thought later in the game, probably, I don't know, maybe it was before about the 2-minute mark. It seemed like there were 3 or 4 possessions there where we really settled on offense. And I think that was just kind of a sign. And you look at some of the numbers, I mean, 35, 32, 34, 38. That's the minutes for Lamar Wilkerson, Connor Enright, Tayton Conerway, and Tucker DeVries. And just to make sure that we are not being hypocritical here, there have been plenty of times on this show that Ryan has come on here early season when Mike Woodson played Trace Jackson Davis 36 minutes, or played someone a lot of minutes, saying, hey, this is too many minutes early in the season. And so I think you can maybe make a carve out for a coach early on looking to build a winning mentality and looking to win some of these games. But boy, we're going to have to find ways to get more depth and find ways to get these guys more breaks. Because I don't think, if these guys are playing hard minutes like this all throughout the season, especially with a couple of them being injury prone, that is probably something to be a little bit concerned about. But today it worked. Indiana won. But to John's point, I do think both these teams looked a little bit tired. I just thought Indiana was more mentally tough. And again, you can kind of see at the free throw line. We mentioned Indiana goes 20 for 21. Baylor was still good from the line, 75%, 18 for 24 or 18 of 24. But that extra shooting efficiency from the free throw line by Indiana helps you win the game. So even if they were tired, and I think they were, their mental toughness allowed them to overcome it. Bob?
I would agree. And I think that I think part of it when I was watching that last IU running offense in the under 4, it did look like it was preservation mode. And I kind of said, I wrote down, this team cannot play defensively, meaning they cannot really be a team that's looking to be a protecting type team. That's one thing they're going to have to give up. They're going to have to keep playing at pace. You can still play at pace without taking shots, but what they can't do is just trying to stall it out by keeping it in one guy's hands with one guy dribbling or trying to post feed your way through it. They're going to have to be active and attacking. I would also say there's a differentiation with playing Baylor in exhibition with Darren DeVries not really knowing kind of how these guys are going to respond and how to kind of scheme and trying to get the education for those guys. Remember, DeVries has always been a coach that plays fewer players. Like his rotations were fairly tight at Drake, 7-8 guys. And he had success doing that. I think he was going to do a similar thing at West Virginia, but things kind of just went all cattywampus for him. But I would say that the big part of that is if we're seeing this against like Southwest Nebraska teachers and Farmers College, then we know we have a problem. That was always an issue with the Woodson stuff, where it's like he's got Trace Jackson Davis 36 minutes against a sub 300 Ken Pound team. And I just see this is more of a practice opportunity than it actually is than it actually is trying to win the game, quote unquote. Yeah. But we'll keep an eye on that. I think it is an interesting conversation for us to have of, can we get guys like Asimovich and Miles when Drake gets back and Doran gets back? It'll be a more, we may see a little more of that. I'll add 2 quick stats. 18 assists on 25 field goals for plus 70%, like 71 or 72% assist rate. They also turned over Baylor 16 times. And off that, they got 11. They had a plus 11 in the points off turnovers category. So if you take their
compensated for the rebounding,
that's exactly my point. I don't know what to call this yet. I want to make this a combined stat group of points off turnovers versus second chance points. That if you add those together, like if you sum it out, so basically it's like whatever the difference is between the two are you plus or minus in that area? IU is -4 in that area, but there's such a stark difference between the offensive rebounding even versus the turnovers. But they actually compensate by trying to turn over Baylor more. Remember, this is a Baylor team, and Baylor is built for offensive rebounding with their length and their athleticism. They've been top 25 in the country the last decade in offensive rebound percentages. So if you can win a game where Baylor does better than Baylor in one of their key factors of offensive rebounding, you've shown that you can compete in different ways, and that's how this team's going to have to find ways to win. And it's trying to find ways to stay competitive and winning. the big takeaway for me on that, from the stats and everything else, is just they found ways to find elements of the game where they could be just enough better than Baylor and they could still stay competitive, where they just weren't blown off the door, where it wasn't like me driving back from Winston-Salem 30 years ago going, how does IU lose to Chauncey Billups? And yeah.
Oh,
so yeah. And
well,
Chauncey, we know Chauncey can find ways to lose in a lot of ways these days.
Much more complicated question
much
now.
More complicated. Yeah. So, yeah, I did kind of.
Yeah, maybe we need to go back and look at that Colorado game. Maybe there was something going on there.
Maybe we should. Maybe we should. I didn't see anybody around it, but it's been a while, and I don't know if I could hold up in court on who was near the Colorado bench. But I do think this is huge. It's good to see IU having people who were concerned this roster couldn't compete. This passes the first test. The roster can compete.
Yeah,
may not be always be able to win, but they can compete.
Great point. Okay, that's a good spot to end segment 2 on. So we will do that. And so coming up here on the assembly call, we will hand out our awards for the game. I've got a lingering question I want to pose to you two, and then we'll look ahead to the start of the season, which is coming up. Stick with us here on the assembly call.
What's up, y'all? It's Devontae Green, giving you the green light to watch Assembly Call after every IU game. Just don't listen to their opinions about shot selection. Remember, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Go Hoosiers.
Thank you, Devontae. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Jared Morris here with Coach Brian Tonsoni and the Coach Bob Moats, breaking down Indiana's exhibition victory over Baylor, 76-74 victory this afternoon in Indianapolis. And it is time now for our game balls, presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. They want to help you protect your home's air quality, and the best way to do that is to stop water at the source. They were voted Best of B-Town and Basement Services for 4 years running. Their basement waterproofing and crawl space encapsulation is the best defense your home can have against mold growth and structural damage. Mention Assembly Call and get 10% off your system. Call today for a free estimate. Or if you just want to hear Allie talk about Kurt Signetti for an hour, we've had that line on this ad read ever since it started. And I'm pretty sure Allie will continue to talk about Kurt Signetti when you call, because Kurt Signetti keeps giving us fun stuff to talk about. Learn more at bloomenviro.com, or, just Google him, Bloom Environmental. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple of players who struggled today, and what that might tell us about kind of what to expect from them moving forward. But let's start with the good stuff here. Let's give out our game balls. Coach Moats, let's start with you. Who gets your game ball for today's victory?
Lamar Wilkerson gets the game ball. 28 points, perfect from the line. Played remarkably well, I thought, on the defensive end too. I felt like Wilkerson in the time he was on the floor, and really did again a lot. At the same time, doing little things like helping try shield guys off the on rebounding. He played a complete game on both ends and was a key. That's the guy we knew we were getting when he committed IU out of the portal.
Yep. Coach, who gets your game ball?
I'm going to go with Lamar Wilkerson for game ball as well, and just copy what Coach Moats said. But I was going to emphasize the defensive end. I thought he did a really good job in both halves of putting ball pressure on, being active with his hands. I thought in the Marion game he got beat back door a couple times, so I had it in the back of my mind to watch him defensively today. And so, you score 28 points in a game, and 13 for 13 for free throws. That's one of the stats I didn't get a chance to say there when I was fixing my mic. 95.2% from the foul line. You get him to the foul line. That's a way to get some easy points too, to compensate for what Indiana is deficient on the rebounds. But I thought Lamar was fantastic today and very deserving.
Yeah, tough to go in any other direction. So let's give it officially to Lamar Wilkerson. But I do want to say, we talked about Tayton Conerway, the huge play at the end, the big second half that he had. But I also want to just give a shout out to Tucker DeVries, who finishes with 18 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals. Really stuffed the stat sheet. And I just thought there were so many possessions where him getting the ball really seems to be a place that kind of settles Indiana down. And he's so good at getting it to the next place it should go. And maybe that should be a shot, or maybe that should be dribbling a couple places. You know, there were a couple times also, which I loved seeing. I think it was once in the first half, he got the ball toward the top of the key, and the wing defender kind of comes over to him. He kind of shot fakes, takes a dribble, draws the defender. Lamar Wilkerson is on the wing, smart enough to relocate further down on the wing as his defender comes up to Tucker, and Tucker just stays patient. Like, you could tell he saw what was happening, dribbled to the right, got it over to Lamar for a wide open three-pointer. And I mean, just seeing two guys play like that off of each other on the wing and end up in a wide open three-pointer, it was beautiful stuff. But you can – that's the thing I've enjoyed the most about watching Tucker DeVries here early on is it feels like you're watching him think the game a step or two ahead. And I really enjoy that about him. And it kind of allows him to play bigger, faster than what he is, just because there's a lot of anticipation there. So just honorable mention to him, because I thought there were a lot of big moments tonight where he settled Indiana down.
I will add his playmaking is going to be fun to watch. He had 5 assists on the game tonight, and he just understands where to throw the ball and where to get people in good position. The fast break 3 that he hit, he kicked it ahead, and then Wilkerson drives and he relocated. But that is such – you know, we call it an old man's game somewhat when you're very smart and intelligent and shot fake and step, you know, and shoot the 3 off a step aside. But he's got a lot of game. And I thought his playmaking today was a big part of Indiana's victory and will throughout the season if Indiana's going to be successful. Not just a three-point shot going in, but his assist and his ability to move the ball one more is a very special thing. You can tell he's a coach's kid.
And I would just
Good
add
shooter.
this real quickly too to that. He really struggled to turn the corner against this duo with the guy defending him today. So it wasn't like he was able to get downhill easily as I think he's been able to get around, get by other opponents. Like when you watch him on film against other opponents, and remember, he didn't play Baylor when he was at West Virginia. He didn't have to have a chance to play against him. His shoulder was already shot by the time he got to the Baylor game. So just thought that even with that sort of additional constraint put on him by the defense, he still turns in this type of performance. So thought that was a very good indicator for him moving forward as well. Just great all around game by him. Just great all around game.
All right, and Hustle Award. I'll end this. I'm going to give my Hustle Award to Tucker DeVries for all the reasons I mentioned, and because in addition to all of that, he played 38 minutes, paced Indiana in minutes, and just plays hard out there all the time. And really, I think that helps set the stage. You know, when your best player is the coach's, or when you have a coach's son, I think it does make it a lot easier when that guy is the best player and plays the hardest. I think Tucker DeVries does those things, which makes that a little bit easier. So Tucker gets my Hustle Award. Coach, who gets yours? Coach Tonsoni.
I'm going to go a little bit off the board here. I'm going to go Sam Alexis. I thought he had some really key rebounds, two-handed rebounds. He had 7 rebounds on the game. He had 3 blocks. You know, we're worried a lot about rim protection. I thought he came up with a few really good plays at the rim in key moments. Now, he was -3 plus-minus. I hate that stat anyway, but I thought his hustle defensively gets the award for me. I can't argue with your DeVries statement as well, but Sam Alexis brings some athleticism and some force down low. I want to give the Hoosier hustle to him today.
Coach Moats, break the tie. We're at a third.
You all want a brokered convention? Let's get a brokered convention. Because, and I'm going to just say that this is going to be the hardest award we do, like that gets done on this show all year long. Because I was thinking before Coach jumped in, I can make a case for Sam Alexis. I can make a case for Connor Enright. The guy I'm going to go with is Tayton Conerway, because I think his head of the snake, how he defended, and that last play, just the amount of mental toughness in that last play, that's a hustle play at the end. That's a mental hustle play. It's a physical hustle play. But I think Tayton Conerway would get mine at this point, because I think that he's the guy that, really just kind of sparked a lot. And that's what you look for in this type of player. Also ended up with 3 steals. He and Enright both had 3 on the day. So that's something to keep in mind, to kind of look at that, look at how he played on both ends of the floor.
This team plays hard, and the hustle awards are going to be difficult when you can isolate plays that everyone you mentioned, all of our guys mentioned, made big contributions because of how hard they played. And that's what Coach DeVries said. They want to play hard every day, and you can see that. And they'll do that in losses too. I really believe that. So these awards are really hard. We're going to have to have a vote in the chat to come up with it. But that's kind of fun when you have a team that is hard to give a Hoosier Hustle Award to.
Sure is. All right, chat mob. You vote, break the tie. You can vote for one of our choices or go off the board for another one. We'll come back and figure out who wins that. All right, so here's my question for you guys. There were a couple guys today that really weren't able to be as efficient as we saw them in the first game. One is Reed Bailey, the other is Trent Sisley. And I thought these were two guys where you really saw the length and maybe the speed of the game and the athleticism hurt them a little bit. Reed Bailey plays 19 minutes, gets up 4 shots, makes 2 of them, only gets a couple of rebounds, missed a couple of close ones inside, and really just never really seemed comfortable or in the flow. I mean, I think he was playing hard. He was trying. It was just a hard game for him to kind of get in the flow. And then Trent Sisley, who I boldly claimed after the Marion game was the best player on the court in that game, and I think he was, really struggled to get going in this one. 16 minutes, does not score, doesn't even get a shot up, has 2 rebounds. Otherwise was just out there doing cardio from a stat perspective. And, I don't think that's necessarily a horrible thing for him. He's a freshman, and these were the types of matchups that were always going to give him some trouble early on. So I do think this is a bit of a reality check for Trent Sisley, that you see him against Marion, and I mean, he looks fantastic. And I think he's going to have some more games like that, especially early on in the season where he really contributes. But then there are going to be some games like this where I think he's going to struggle. And so for Sisley, it's probably going to be a bit of a matchup thing, where, is this going to be a good game for him and one where he can really contribute, or, is it not? And so, Coach Johnson, I guess really my question to you is, what's your level of concern coming out of this game with those two guys? Or was it basically kind of just what you expected, and this is just, kind of something that Indiana's coaches are going to have to kind of, work around with these guys when they get in matchups like this?
I think it's matchup. There is no concern whatsoever. I thought Sisley did what he could do today against an athletic team like this, where Indiana's having trouble breaking down defenses and kicking out and getting those open threes. He was a benefactor from a lot of open kick-out threes where he just has to catch and shoot. He's not in a position yet to manufacture a lot, and we don't need that. We have the other guys who can do that. He needs to come in, eat some minutes, do the little things, move the basketball. And I thought his floor game, while not statistically solid at all, I don't think he hurt Indiana while he was out there. And sometimes, and Coach Moach can attest to this too, is like, just go in there and set a screen, block out, don't let your guy get the ball. You're adding to the victory by doing those things that don't get counted on the stat sheet. I thought Sisley was good. Reed Bailey's passing and his ability to do some things, he struggled against the athleticism. So, again, this is an exhibition, and there wasn't a lot of sets run and a lot of things. Coach will put probably Bailey more into actions to utilize Bailey than Sisley, but Sisley's going to just be that 6th, 7th man that needs to come in and contribute in ways that maybe it won't be on the stat sheet. So I'm not concerned at all about that. In any game where you have guys go off like Wilkerson and Conerway and those guys, which you want to, you're not going to have a whole lot of statistical stuff from your other guys. So that is not a concern of mine at all. I don't think he was played poorly or weak at all.
Coach Moats, any thoughts on those two gentlemen?
Yeah, I'll start with Bailey. That you're looking at a guy that at Davidson was a high utilization big man, especially kind of getting the ball in the paint and scoring there. So I think he played a little more. He's learning how to play with more constraints and more restraints with the better roster around him, with a Power 5, Power 4 team surrounding him versus being almost. And it's going to be true on a lot of all these guys in many respects that we brought in on the transfer portal are former high utilization players who are going to have to learn what to give up and what to gain. There were some times when those post feeds late. I think this is what kind of colors our vision, is that the eye test showed us that, man, he just can't get that shot off with his back to the basket. Whereas a year ago, he probably could get it off. It still didn't make it a great shot, but it was an expectation playing at Davidson that he would do that. At Indiana, he's got to look to move it out a little quicker and get it to those spots, and then just kind of move there. Like Coach says, they're going to, as time goes on, they'll get him in more actions. They'll start finding him. You're going to see him be a deadly guy off of slips on screens, like late game situations. You can see him just getting a slip off of a ball screen or even an off ball action, and then all of a sudden, boom, easy layup, and no one will be there to guard him on that backside. Sicily, I think the biggest thing with Sicily was he showed me the one thing I was looking for was, can he defend a Baylor-esque type team's wings? The answer is he can. He can play on-ball defense on those guys. He wasn't getting his socks blown off. He didn't get, he wasn't basically, didn't have his guy, with their Nikes on his eyebrows as they're dunking on him. That's a great thing to see out of a freshman who's looking to play high major basketball. So I think at the end, I don't think he didn't get a shot look. He did get 2 rebounds, but Coach hit the nail on the head. He went in there and did what Darren DeVries needed him to do to give some of those guys a breather and prove that he can play at this level. And it's not where you start, it's where you end up. Let's see where we are in February and March. And I think by that point, you're going to see a little more out of him, at least on the offensive end.
Good point. Coach?
I just wanted to add for our listeners to watch as the season goes on. When that ball gets thrown in the post or driven baseline and gets shut down, and that ball gets reversed just outside the slot, that ball gets reversed side to side fast in a Coach DeVries offense, which makes the defense has covered up, whether they've doubled or they've helped over and shut off the play on the baseline. Now you move that ball quickly, you can attack on the second side or the third side of the offense. But I noticed that a lot. I was right on the end upstairs and had a really good view of when that ball is shut down on the baseline, Indiana gets it out and then they quickly reverse it. Of course, a couple times they'll hold on to it.
Uh-oh. We lost Coach's mic. I think he has a loose connection on the, on the mic wire. It was a good point he was making, too.
Yeah, great point. But about loose connections, people have been saying that about me and I'm sure him for decades. So I get it.
Yeah, I'm back now. I get the little blue light I'm watching. But the side-to-side ball action is old motion concept, right? But now with all the dribble drive and the ball screen stuff, you can utilize that too because you're moving the defense. So as you're at home, watch that ball reversal, that quick ball reversal when the ball gets stopped on one side. I thought that was really good stuff today.
Great point. Okay, well, let's wrap things up here. Indiana opens the season for real. The game will count. The stats will count. It is Wednesday against Alabama A&M. This is one of the weakest opponents on Indiana's schedule, 320th in KenPom, one of 3 teams preseason in the 300s in KenPom. They finished last year at 10-22, playing the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and Indiana currently a 24-point favorite, according to KenPom. So this is a game that Indiana obviously should win comfortably, but you got to get some good work done in this one because the next game after that is Sunday against Marquette. Which is obviously a huge game, one of the big marquee non-conference games for Indiana. So, hopefully you build some momentum from this game, rest the bodies up a little bit, get a lot of guys minutes against Alabama A&M, and then be ready for that game against Marquette next weekend. And, of course, we will have post-game shows live after both those games. So we hope that you'll join us. Remember to go check out our friends at Homefield Apparel. You can use the promo code HOME23 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. Guys, it is time for last call. Your final thoughts on today's exhibition victory. Coach Moats, you first, and then Coach Tonsoni.
Quick clarification. The game against Alabama A&M will be Wednesday, November 5th. So we actually have a week and a half.
Oh gosh. Oh, so there's no game this Wednesday.
No, we're in a practice period between now.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Getting closer to that. Right. Yeah, because we have it's November 1st next Saturday. So
yeah, you're right. Okay, so we got some time.
So yeah, I think the best thing is that there comes a point where after years of starts and stops and just all this sort of consternation, I was thinking, get your hotel and dinner reservations for December 6th for Indianapolis now. Just book it down now. Even if because you have that, there's a potential, a higher than we would ever have imagined probability that the University of Louisville IU game at 2 p.m. followed by the 8 p.m. kickoff of the Big Ten championship game, which looks like as long as IU takes care of business and keep doing what they're doing, it'll be IU versus Ohio State. We could be living a month from now in an amazingly heady time in Indianapolis where the city gets what it finally is needed for 40, 50 years, which is just a complete IU invasion of downtown Indy for that period of time, and just enjoying this ride right now. We talk about it all the time. We're talking about football, but even with this basketball program, just like it's like kind of watching your toddler, your preschooler, getting up to speed. Just enjoy kind of those moments, because I think we're seeing the beginnings of something special. We've seen it in football. I think we're seeing it in basketball.
Well said, Coach. Final thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say just thank you to all the fans who stop and say hello, either in the football game, in the tailgate lots. Every game, there's 5 or 6 of you that recognize this ugly face and come say hello. It means a lot to me, and I pass it on to all the guys here. It's why we do the show. I met Dalton O'Boyle. He's in here. I see him. Just had a really good conversation. He got to meet Andy as well a week or so ago. We enjoy Indiana basketball. We enjoy doing the show, but we really enjoy because we have a group of people like you that really do show your appreciation for us. It's just one of the blessings that I have of being on the show. And we're a little happier. So Indiana wins a game tonight by 2 in an exhibition game. It doesn't count, but the style of basketball, the hustle, the play on the court is more collegiate. We have a coach who's in the community, who's talking basketball. Today was a good day if you're an Indiana basketball fan. Yesterday and all Saturdays have been a great day for us Indiana football fans. So let's just enjoy what we have. We have a couple programs here. We have women's basketball. We have volleyball on the rise. It's a good time to be an Indiana Hoosier, and thanks to all of the coaches and Scott Dolson and everyone that are making this happen. Today was a lot of fun, and I think this team's going to be fun, win or lose the rest of the season.
Perfect concluding statement there, Coach. Nothing to add. That is going to do it for us on this edition of the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Assembly Call. We'll get you there. And don't forget, you can still go to our Substack, substack.assemblycall.com as well. Get our free newsletter, watch replays of the show. Special thank you to Bob Thompson for the music. Special thank you to John Ringer of Rig Design for designing our logo, who Coach got to meet this week and send us a picture. Yeah. And thank you, of course, for listening. We'll be back to talk hoops with you again here soon. Until then, keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Here I come, Mrs. Stansoni.
All right, get on the road, Coach.
I'm going to go home. I was on.
How are you still awake? Okay, that's how you're still awake. You got caught up on sleep.
That's right.
I mean, you never cease to amaze me. I know that, because I mean, it's like the hardest, they're like the hardest working former high school basketball coach in show business right now. You're everywhere. You're everywhere.
7 o'clock is not too early to crack open a cold one for the Hoosiers.
1,000%. Yeah,
That's right. All right, everybody. Oh, by the way, Tucker
We'll
DeVries, Hustle Award. He wins.
Yeah.
Way to go, Tucker. Coach Moats, thanks for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
all right, guys.
Me.
Have a good one.
And thank you, everything for Jared. Appreciate it. You too. Bye-bye.
Of course. See you guys.